pride, bragging rights, and a major cash infusion. That's what you get when the hometown team goes to the championship. Or is it? While we're all eagerly awaiting the Red Sox return to Fenway for Game 6, you might be surprised how little the World Series actually influences the city's bottom line. In certain areas of Red Sox Nation, things are humming along. The buying is brisk and the taps are flowing.
There's a great energy in the neighborhood. People are getting behind the team and really coming out to support the Red Sox.
To be sure, the energy around Fenway is palpable. Red Sox paraphernalia is flying off the shelves.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a busy playoffs. They're in the World Series. Everyone thinks they're going to win.
But what about beyond Fenway? Does feeling good mean spreading the wealth? According to the Greater Boston Convention and Visitors Bureau, a hometown Sox game can bring in $5.6 to $6.3 million in revenue per game. Even more, estimates the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce, $9 to $10 million per game. So where is that going other than Fenway? Near North Station, bars and restaurants are definitely seeing a bump in business.
Yeah, it's great for business. Nice little plus on top of the Bruins season starting already, and we get the Celtics starting this week too.
But says Peter Colton, owner of the Fours restaurant near the TD Garden, the late game starts mean people won't stay out late.
The late starts have definitely make it a little tougher for people, I think, and the games are pretty long, so people start out, and I don't know if they really hang in there for the whole time.
Jen Harvey, a waitress at the Fours, says a winning game also means people are more generous with the tips.
We definitely make a little more money. Yeah.
Moving a little further still from Fenway, we headed to the Seaport Hotel, where VP of Sales Mariana Accomando tells us business is much better than a normal late October.
St. Louis is a team that travels well. And with that, I mean they're close enough. It's not a West Coast team, and their fans are very loyal to them. So they really are traveling to Boston. We actually tracked cab usage from the front door of the hotel the last series games, and the cabs were absolutely inundated. Everyone was going to Fenway Park.
And says Seaport Hotel concierge Paul Lyons, it's not all about the money.
What's great about our line of work is we're kind of ambassadors, not to the hotel, but to the city as well. So the fact that we get to wear these shirts and promote our city as well as the home team is awesome. Take a lot of pride in that.
All right, so how do you measure the economic impact of a championship series? My next guests have given that question a lot of thought. Victor Matheson is an economics professor at the College of the Holy Cross, and John Chesto is the managing editor of the Boston Business Journal. Welcome to both of you. Now, so Victor, you're a little skeptical. You don't really think this really does much at all.
Yeah, so if you actually look back at evidence of teams that have hosted World Series and all sorts of other big events, Super Bowls, NBA Finals, Stanley Cups, a lot of those we've had here in Boston over the last decade or so. Usually if you have estimates made by chambers of commerce and especially estimates made by professional sports teams and leagues, you can take whatever the league says and maybe move that decimal point in one place to get an actual economic impact of these sort of big events.
And John Chesto, as you wrote in your column in the Boston Business Journal, the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce and the Greater Boston Convention and Visitors Center had widely differing, like off by $3-4 million. So that's a big difference. And also, it's all the same people who benefit from it, isn't it? It's the hotels, a couple of the restaurants, but it's not like a citywide share of the wealth.
Well, the difference between the Chamber of Commerce estimate, which was $9 to $10 million a game, and the Visitors Bureau figure, which is around $6 million, is that the Visitors Bureau they're really looking at all the new money to the area. They only look at people coming here from outside of a 50-mile radius, as well, so essentially tourism money, but not just tourists. All the entourage that comes with the Cardinals, and it gets very large for a World Series game, much larger than a regular series game. All the media that come from all over the world to cover this is obviously much larger than a typical game. A typical game brings in 1 million to 1.5 million new money into the economy. That 9 to 10 million is much closer to sort of an estimate of what everybody's spending, including all of us who live here who might go out and get a beer or two or get a dinner while the game's playing. Yes, there's it's really focused on the hospitality industry. Obviously, there are certain aspects of maybe a marketing business might do better because they're hired to promote something for these restaurants. But that's really small. It's really the hospitality corner of the economy, which is a fairly significant corner of Boston's economy, does well.
But the bottom line is, Victor, you can't really measure this because there's a lot of downsides to it, too. A lot of people will avoid the city at any cost because of this, or they want to stay home and be watching the game because, they'd rather be home than out somewhere.
Yeah, so there's a couple really important things we want to work at. And one of the important issues is really how much new money gets brought into the economy versus how much money just gets shifted around.
Yeah.
So there is no doubt that if you're a sports bar, you had a fantastic night and you've had a fantastic run here all through October because everyone's out at the bar watching games. The Sox are obviously doing great at the gates. But if you're a movie theater, you haven't done well at all. If you're trying to sell tickets to a play, if you're a fine dining restaurant without televisions, you had a lot of empty tables over the last couple of weeks because people, again, aren't spending more. They're shifting money around in the economy.
Yeah, so how do the convention centers come up with this money? I don't understand that.
Well, they look at how many extra rooms are going to being booked on top of it, and then they're sort of extrapolating how many extra meals are going to be bought or how many extra drinks are going to be bought around those hotels. This is really the convention center formula, or the convention bureau formula, is really based on hotels is what's driving it. So they do include some people that live within 50 miles who stay in a hotel. They'll count some of those figures.
But why don't they subtract then all the businesses that are losing money? The ballet or
right. They don't try to get
Symphony.
into. So at the Greater Boston Convention Visitors Bureau, they'll say this is the net new influx of money for the economy from outside. They don't try to get at the total amount. They realize it's a hard thing to get. I mean, I was really surprised when I contacted the Mass Restaurant Association, figuring they'd say, well, it's good in Boston, not so good outside. But they were saying it's on balance, it's actually worse for the restaurant business in the state. Yes, around Fenway, other parts down, Seaport area, other parts of Boston, the restaurants are doing great. But they fully expect quiet nights, like you pointed out, on nights of the game, because who's going to go out and get a nice meal during a World Series game?
Yeah, and I think that's a very nice point, is that lots of folks who do economic impact statements are awfully good at adding and multiplying, but they're not good at all at subtracting.
You've looked at this in terms of political conventions, too, because there was a lot of hullabaloo in 2004 when the Democratic political convention was here, and, it's going to be an economic boon to the city. It wasn't.
Well, certainly when you have cases like that, we had huge, what economists would call crowding out. Yeah. If you were here for the convention, obviously you're spending a bunch of money, but if you weren't directly associated with the convention, you tried as hard as you could to stay out of Boston because it's such a disaster, right? We kind of have the same sort of issue going on with the Boston Marathon. Huge event, right? About 1 million people watch it live, and you bring about 25,000 runners from across the country and around the world to Boston, and they spend new money here. But also, anyone who's been a resident of Boston knows under no circumstances do you go to Boston for any reason on Patriots Day unless you're specifically there to watch the race.
So have you done the math, Victor?
Well,
have you done the subtraction for the convention centers?
Well, so I think really what it comes down to is, first of all, making numbers doesn't really matter so much unless you're trying to use those numbers for some sort of political gain. And a lot of places in the rest of the country, you use inflated numbers to try to get big subsidies for new sports facilities. And one of the great things about Boston is Boston has highly successful sports teams that have taken almost no public money. We have a completely privately funded Fenway Park. We have a privately funded Gillette Stadium and a privately funded TD Bank North Garden.
Maybe Gillette would like to move to Suffolk Downs now, though. Just a suggestion. We'll see. Be more convenient. All right, John Chesto, Victor Matheson, thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
All right, that is it for Greater Boston. Join us tomorrow night now for the third mayoral debate. John Connolly and Marty Walsh meet face-to-face for the final time before Election Day, live at 7 here on WGBH2 on 89.7 WGBH Radio and streaming at WGBHnews.org. I'm Emily Rooney, and we leave you now with a tribute to musician Lou Reed, the founder of the Velvet Underground, died yesterday at the age of 71. Good night.
Holly came from Miami, FLA. Hitchhiked her way across USA. Plucked her eyebrows on the way. Shaved her legs and then he was a she. She says, hey babe, take a walk on the wild side. Said, hey honey, take a walk on the wild side.